Hi, I'm Brian Crosser, former tour player and consultant for Ektelon Racket Sports. I'm coming to you today to talk to you about the DPR Power line of rackets. DPR stands for Double Power Ring. This is the most powerful line of rackets Ektelon has. This unique frame design with the two pins at the bottom of the racket creates an elastic string bed that goes down into the throat of the racket. They fan out the strings to get that optimal power, to create larger squares, to get that explosion you're looking for in the ball. I want to give you guys a tutorial today on how to properly string this and mount it on a machine. When selecting the proper string for the DPR series of rackets, Ektelon prefers the Premier Power, which will give you the best results. The Premier Power comes in 16 gauge, 17 and 18 gauge, in black and red. I want to talk to you about the ESP Classic. One thing about the DPR that makes it unique, it allows us to have different string beds. The ESP Classic only has 12 mains to get that optimal power. Or if you're looking for a little bit more control, you can go to the Toron Lite, which has 14 mains. This unique design of the DPR down at the throat of the racket allows you to have a customized racket that best suits you to get the optimal power. Now let's get started. I have the Magnum Light racket here that has the DPR pattern at the bottom. First, when you mount it, make sure that your clamp at the throat is positioned best to give you the most access to the throat so you can maneuver the string. I am going to put this clamp down so we have open area. Now, the best way is to clamp one of the mains down, and when you take the string, always have the string in your hand and don't let go because it will save you time. When you come down through, you want to go through the inside, wrap the string around the pin. We're going to call this right pin. Because it is mounted, this is the right side of the racket. So we're going to go down hole number 1 through the inside of the throat on pin number 2 on the right side, wrap it around, and come back up. Now, the trick to these DPR rackets is you want to make sure one side has the string on the top, and the other side, when you tension it, has the string on the bottom. You want to layer and stack them. So, let's tension and clamp. Okay, as you can tell, this string is mounted on the bottom. I'm going to take the awl, press it down to make sure that it stays at the bottom of the pin. Next, let's start with the other side. Now, to make sure that the left pin, again, you want to go down the inside, wrap around the left pin, and come up to the top of the racket. Because the right side of the racket was at the bottom, we want to make sure the left side is now at the top. How I properly do that is you can use an awl or your finger, whichever you prefer, tension and clamp to hold that racket up. Now, as you can see, the left side of the frame is on the top and the right side is on the bottom. We will continue this pattern to layer the strings until we get to the final main. Here you want to make sure that the string is layered on the bottom and you're stacking it from the bottom up. I will show you here in 1 second. Tension and clamp. Release the tension. As you can see, we are layering from the bottom up on the right. Let's go to the next side. Coming down from the top, this time going underneath around the outside, back up through the inside of the frame. Back to hole 2 at the top. Now, as you can tell, this may have a tendency to go up towards the top. Make sure that we have it layered on top from the top down. Okay? Tension and clamp. As you can see, they're layered and stacked. Let's keep going on. Now, because I'm starting from the bottom up on the right side, I'm going to go through the inside, around the top of the pin, coming back around and through. String's being a little stubborn today, so what I did was I took an angle cut to make it a little more pointed to help me get it through the stubborn hole. Now, as you can tell, we want to make sure there's enough room. Pull the string down. Tension and clamp. Again, we're layering from the bottom up on the right side. As you can see, they're layered. Let's go again on the left side of the frame. Now, since we're coming down in the center, we want to go on the inside underneath. Around the pin. Grab from the bottom, pull to the top. Make sure that they're layered from the top down. Tension and clamp. Again, as you can see, they have been layered from the top down. I'm at the last 2 sets of mains. I want to go into a little bit more detail because this becomes the somewhat tricky part. On the Toron Light and the 03 White, as well as the Magnum Light series of rackets, there are 14 mains. For Ektelon to accomplish that, they need to take one of the sides. We prefer the right side of the racket. How did we select that? On the racket, you will see that it says short side. Always make sure the short side is on the left when you mount it. Number 2, if there is an Ektelon logo on the handle, you can see, we prefer that to be up. So make sure when you mounted it, you had the Ektelon up. If you didn't, no worries. If the short side is on the right, that's fine, just make sure the left has the longer string. Let me show you what I mean. We properly mounted this. The right side of the string is longer on the right side of the racket than the left. Why did we do that? Because this right side is going to have to go down, wrap around the 2 pins, and come back up to the other side. So let's show you how to do it. Okay, when you have the racket mounted on the machine, it does not matter if the short side is on the left or right. We prefer it to be on the left because it makes it easier. However, if you have made that mistake and the short side is on the opposite side, just make sure and pay attention. Ektelon has done a great job marking. As you can see here, they mark the dots where the mains go, as well as done a great job showing where the starting knot is. So, for this DPR line of racket, this 03 white, the reason I'm discussing this is because of the O ports. If you do not properly start the crosses on the right side, or do not properly have the long side of the racket finish on the right side of the frame, it will throw off the flow of your O ports. So make sure and look where it says your starting crosses on the racket. In this case, they are right here. Here is the start for your crosses. Here are the two finish knots for the frame. If it's mounted with the short side up here, which is what we recommend, the finishing knots will be on the left. The starting knot will be on the right. It clearly says at the top and has been indicated where the proper starting location is for the crosses. So let's finish with the right side. Here is the longer side. Before we can get it all the way over to the other side, we need room for this clamp. So let's first tie off this knot. And if you have questions about the proper way to tie off a knot, go ahead and visit the United States Racket Stringing Association website, and they can give you plenty of different tips on how to do that. Okay. So, now that we've cleared the room, this is the finishing main to get the mains completed. We're going to go down the racket. Because the left side of the racket started from the top down, we're going to go above the strings on the outside of the left pin, wrap it around the right. What I would recommend is wrapping it up and high, and I will show you why in a second. Now that we have the racket up and high, we can come back at another angle because we need to go down on the racket here. So we can go down, around on the inside of the left power ring, and back around on the outside, up to the top of the racket. Now, remember we discussed layering? If I put a little tension on, the left side is properly layered from the bottom up. Now the right side, let's pretend it was improperly layered. See how it went to the top? We want to correct that, push it down, so when we tension and clamp it is layered. In doing this, it accomplishes, I do not recommend doing this to any racket, but I'm going to take the clamp off to show you. You can see down here, the result gives you a string that goes from one side to another. I'm going to hurry and get this done so I don't damage the racket. Okay, now all I need to do is tie the mains off with the final finishing knot so that I will be ready for the crosses. And make sure when you start the crosses to look on the location of the racket to find the proper side to start your crosses. One tip before you start your crosses for the DPR line of rackets is you want to count the number of crosses you have, and you can see that in the stringing instructions at ektelon.com. If there is an even number of crosses, you want to do a soft weave. If there is an odd number of crosses, you want to start out with a hard weave and the racket will finish properly at the bottom. Thanks again for tuning into the series of DPR rackets. I hope you get a better understanding of how to properly string them. Choose Ektelon and play with fire.